creepy now. Crazy stuff. Anyway, today I decided that I am going to be doing some spooky, spooky, spooky stories from Reddit. I'm gonna give credit to Ocean's ASMR. I don't think she's the first person that did this, but, sorry. I recently watched hers, which inspired me to do the same thing, so, I'm going to be reading as he saw what I was cooking. Damien's jaw practically fell to the floor, and Sharon took a cautious step back. "What the hell, Joey?" Matt stuttered as he slowly walked through the apartment. He pushed my slightly ajar bathroom door fully opened. "What?" I asked defensively. "It's just soup." Damien stepped in. "There's an arm on that cutting board." I furrowed my brows in confusion, sucking some tasty vegetable juice off the tips of my fingers. I looked down, and sure enough, sitting right next to my pile of chopped celery and onions was a woman's severed hand and forearm lying in a giant puddle of blood. Her nails had been painted a vibrant yet elegant shade of red. I pressed my lips into a thin line. How did that get there? That was his response. How did that get there? Who wrote this? It was then that I noticed the state of the apartment. Large brownish stains covered the living room carpet. Dry and wet blood trails littered the floors. I looked at my bathroom, which Matthew had been investigating. Floating in blood and partially melted ice in my bathtub, laid the body, the arm, on my cutting board it belonged to. Her clouded, dead eyes were staring right at me. The young lady looked familiar to me in the moment, but I didn't know why. Slowly, the reality of the whole situation set in. What? I asked, setting my knife down with trembling hands. "Did I do that?" I think so, Sharon said, eyeing me up and down. I'd been wearing an apron as I cooked, which upon further notice was drenched in blood. The skin on my face, neck, and hands was caked in dried, flaky brown bits. Turns out the vegetable juice on my fingers had actually been fresh blood. Suddenly, Sharon hissed at me, her front canine teeth extending into full-on fangs. Damien joined her, a low growl emanating from deep in his throat. Matthew joined in, glaring at me, frantically muttering something under his breath. Together, the three of them started to close in on me, cornering me in the kitchen. "Guys," I choked out as fresh fear flooded my veins. What on earth was going on? Matt started chanting faster and faster, my mind getting foggier as he did so. Static filled my ears as the inky black splotches started to envelop my vision. Then everything went dark. I woke up tied tightly to a chair, facing my roommate sitting across from me on the couch. The way the three of them sat there made it feel like I was on trial, sitting in front of a jury, which essentially I was. Matthew was the first one to say something. He introduced himself. "I'm Matthew Lawson," which Oh. There he is. The little bean. The trip was short and easy. I was lucky enough to already be on the east side of town, and the pickup spot was only 4 minutes away. I walked in, waited in line, and went through the same steps that have become a near nightly routine. I walked up to the counter and said, "I've got an Uber Eats order for Bailey J." At the sound of that name, the cashier's face immediately went sour. They looked at me like I had offended them just by walking in, like I had ruined their whole day with that one sentence. After a few seconds of no response, I tried to cut through the tension that suddenly crept over me, asking, "Do you need to see the..." They cut me off sharply. No, we don't. One of the cashiers heard. There is a ghost in my freaking house. What was that? Okay, that better have been my cat, but also it better have not been my cat, because if my cat wakes up my baby, I'm gonna lose it. Okay. One of the cashiers turned around, grabbed 3 big carry-out bags, and simply said, "Here." That one word dripped with so much spite, as if they wanted whatever was in those bags out of their store as soon as possible. I left in a hurry and had no idea why they were so upset until I got back in my car and took a closer look at the order. This person, Bailey J., had ordered 30 burgers, all with no bread, no cheese, nothing but the meat. Oh my god, is this the same story as the last one? Maybe this seems like an overreaction to you, but people don't do stuff like this. They're predictable. They get the meal, a side, and a milkshake, 4 drinks with no food maybe, not 10 pounds of nothing but ground beef, was immediately greeted with an awful smell, though I tried my best to not let it show on my face for the sake of being polite, but whoever had called me into that sad little motel room was nowhere in sight. Unwilling to go any further in, I called out, "Food for Bailey J. I have the bags here. I can send them down." The voice interrupted, louder and much less weak than before. "Yes, I'm in here. Come in, please." The sound seemed to be coming from all around me, but I noticed the bathroom door was open. This was the source of that light, a bright fluorescent glow, an offense to the eyes that had been accustomed to the dark of the night. I slowly crept over, my heart and mind far outpacing my feet, rapidly theorizing what could possibly be awaiting me. The smell got stronger with every step I took forward. It became impossible for me to ignore. I almost crossed the threshold when I saw a thick drop of liquid fall from the ceiling. I froze and arched my neck to see something. Part of me still failed to admit was really there. Just above me was a massive set of teeth, yellowed and gnashing with exposed, discolored gums. The teeth belonged to a greater mass, some amalgamation of flesh clinging to the tiles of the bathroom ceiling. Even without eyes or a nose, it knew I had approached, and it became restless. Its tongue darted out of its mouth, reaching for something to grab hold of. Coils of muscle and tendon stretched from the mass, wildly threshing through the air, grazing just past the top of my head. I quickly backed away from the bathroom and ran to the door, but it had shut and locked. With no attempts to flip the bolt or twist the knob making any difference, I was trapped. I started screaming out of hope someone might hear me, but there was no stir from the neighboring rooms. I fell to the floor and began to cry. When I heard the voice again, this time it made no attempt to seem meek or even human. The words boomed in my head as if they were spoken from right behind my eyes. "Feed me, and you may leave." After a moment or two of denial and acceptance grappling for control over my next course of action, I peered back into that brightly lit room. From this distance, I couldn't see any sign of the teeth, but I could hear them chattering in anticipation. Finally, I got up, grabbed the bags, and walked to the entrance of the bathroom. There was a freaking ghost in my house, guys. I'm reading spooky stories right now. You scared the ever-loving crap out of me. Could not figure out where you were. I kept hearing noises in the house, and I was like, the house is haunted. The house is haunted. What? I will. He told me to make it part of the video. Do you want to say hi? Do you want to make a cameo? Guys, this is the source of the noises and the ghost in my house. Okay, I have to finish. I know it's not going to be spooky anymore, so what are you just going to stand here? Oh, that's a good thumbnail. That's a great thumbnail, actually. No, show the night. Oh, I'm going to get demonetized, actually. Never mind. Oh, are we all in here now? Okay, then now the dog is in here.
Wait for the cat to come, then it's really a spooky story.
Okay, I have to finish this story.
He is spooky because he's spooky.
I have to finish. Okay. Reset. Okay. Right at the climax. Finally, I got up, grabbed the bags, and walked to the entrance of the bathroom. Now I noticed in the corner next to the toilet was a shovel. I opened all the styrofoam containers, 5 patties in each one, and picked up the shovel. As I did, I could tell the mass was delighted at my cooperation. More saliva dripped to the floor as its tongue appeared again from behind its teeth. I put several patties on the shovel and lifted it up, angling it carefully to not drop any out of fear that might make it angry. It lapped the meat into its mouth and began to chew. Bits of beef and spit fell onto me. My skin crawled at the touch, but I dreaded the idea of upsetting this thing so much that I stood still and stomached it. After a few more shovelfuls, the meat was gone and the mass seemed pleased with itself. I then heard a loud click was there, I saw something